Hello and welcome back to Ground Level Theology. With me, as always, is my co-host, Dave Hoffman. Welcome back, Dave.
What's up? Hey. What's up? Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all. You don't even have the southern twang like that.
It's like, I want you to say y'all like you would say you all. Y'all.
Oh
Y'all.
man.
Oh gosh.
Well,
Okay. I'm
today,
over it.
today we have one heck of an episode. We're gonna go ahead and react to this. So this is actually something that has come across my Instagram feed. Uh, it's even been sent to me by some people, and so I really wanted to react. At first, I just thought, ah, it's it. You guys will see. But at first, I blew it off. But when it started getting sent to me, then I had to feel like, all right, we need to respond to this. And then also, it's sort of a platform for a bigger conversation. We like to talk about something bigger and not just reacting to the video. And I think this would be a good conversation for something bigger. But before we do that, let's just go ahead and jump into the video. This is about a quote unquote Christian nightclub. So let's go ahead and look at this video, and then we'll go ahead and talk about this.
To create a Christian nightclub in Los Angeles. You're gonna be dancing, worshiping, meeting other believers. In LA and you're trying to turn up with other Christians, click the link in bio and get on the wait list. See, God
Oh yeah.
told us to create a Christian.
Okay. I just wanted that first part to be in there as well. Dave, I sent this to you. We laughed
Yeah.
and we let it go, but as I said, people were sending this to me, wanting to hear my reaction, wanting to hear me cringe through my reactions.
Interesting. It's like they sent it to you, like they wanted you to like they
Yeah.
knew why they sent it to you.
So, this was sent to me, and I thought, let's talk about this. And I'm gonna give you the first impressions. I'm gonna give you the first words of the reaction.
Yeah. Uh, well, first off, you're not. We're not trying to laugh at I'm not laughing at these individuals. Okay, it's
Right.
husband and a wife, a couple, and I believe they're Christians. So I'm not even like, haha, so silly.
Yeah.
At first, it's almost like it's on me, and I'm like almost like laughing in disbelief because I don't even know how to react because just the idea, the
Yeah.
thought, it is creative, and it's out there in the sense of like you're kind of like how is that going to work?
Right.
Like it's different, it's uncharted territory. Like how do you have a Christian nightclub? And 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 not saying it can't happen because they're in the process of doing it, but it's really like it's just my brain trying to understand like the idea of like bright lights, deep bass for Jesus, and it's
Right,
like, hey,
right.
a place where you could go and have a good time and not worrying about having too much to drink, having someone drug your drink, and you just want to have fellowship with friends, maybe other than an Applebee's.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and so at first I was kind of like, yeah, right. And then I've watched it again with you, and it's like, okay, no, yeah, let's talk about this. Like, this is really happening. They're opening their doors.
Yeah,
Like,
they're going
like,
forward.
yeah,
They have a form for a wait list. They are
wow,
selling tickets. They are renting the venue, and I'm sure they have a DJ probably lined up by now. They are serious in setting up a Christian nightclub. Um, and and obviously we sort of have this knee jerk reaction of like, nah, that's not happening. But
yeah.
they're
Because I go
going
clubbing all
forward
the
with
time.
it. And I think it's something we have to kind of talk about because there's a broader conversation to have here. But the first thing that I got out of this was the first words out of that. And you guys heard it last because I had to let the video cycle over, but God told us. God told us.
Yeah,
He's the one that told us to do this. I don't feel
yeah.
comfortable when people say God told me. Like
Yeah,
I
like you're like the prophet
understand,
Isaiah in
yeah,
the third heaven.
that God is speaking. I understand that He might have given you the inclination to go talk to someone, but the words God told me sit very authoritative.
Yeah.
And so when I heard from the start, God told us to open a Christian nightclub. I'm like, like there could. Yeah, I'm not even gonna deny that. Maybe this has been put on their heart, but we have that phrase for that reason. God has put on my
Hmm.
heart. There's sort of like this convicting idea that's there that I'm trying to flesh out more. But the idea
Mm.
that God told me open up a Christian nightclub in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
those are,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
as you said, it's sort of like the prophet Isaiah, it's like God is speaking and he says, I need you to go out. It's like,
yeah. Well, like, and you can't, like, we know as pastors, like, a lot of trepidation when we go into the pulpit and then we're like, "Thus saith the Lord,"
right,
like this is God's will, or because you can't argue with that. Also, right? Any pushback,
right,
not like whether it's warranted or not, any sort of pushback whatsoever would be seen as like, can I go as extreme? If this is from God, I can go as far as to say like opposition's from the devil. Like
right.
this is just Satan trying to get in the way of what God wants.
Oh yeah,
Like
and
you're
then
gonna like thwart God's will if we
hmm
can't do this.
and then any like elders or fellow brothers that might be going, maybe that's not God impressing that on your heart. Maybe that's some ambition, some new Christian zeal as a young Christian. Maybe it's some of that.
Mm,
But no, that as you said, like if this is what God told you to do, anything else is essentially the enemy. Is a satanic attack on God's will and plan. And
mhm.
I
Scary, scary place to
yeah, so
say that.
that's the first thing God told us. I don't like that language. I think we should be a little bit more explicit with what we're trying to get across.
And
And
that's
so we
with
have
anything, right?
right,
Like anything. Like God told me to open up a fast food restaurant. God told me to run a marathon. It's like just be careful with like what God is telling you
right. I
to
mean,
do.
even with me, like chasing after the calling of being a pastor, which took me
Hmm.
10 years. I never said God told me to be a shepherd to that God told me to be a
Right.
pastor. I said God has called me to be. I'm
Yeah.
chasing a calling. I can also not chase it. I can be disobedient. There's plenty of other things, but I never said God
Jonah.
told me. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't use those words because of how strong they are. Uh, one thing I will say is God told me to make disciples of all nations. I can say that.
Where'd you
I can,
get that though? It's like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I know.
like
Keep going. Sorry.
God told me those things in which I can really be concrete and affirmative. But as far as feeling inclined or convicted, I think that's too harsh of a language. So there's that at the beginning. But then on top of that, right, the whole Christian nightclub thing. There's something that really bothers me there, and I'm trying not to be, the knee-jerk fundamentalist Baptist type person,
Legalistic Leonard.
Yeah, legalistic Leonard, yeah, because from eternity past, practically, as long as there was a father to a son, there was
Yeah.
always my generation did it better, and your generation, what you're doing is like satanic, it's
Yeah.
sinful, it's the devil's music,
Oh
it's
yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
you're not allowed to dance because that's satanic. You can't listen to rock and roll because that's the devil's music, and all this other stuff. And now we have bands like Cutlass and Mercy Me and Jeremy Camp that are singing this kind of rock and roll of the old day, which
Hmm.
is really just rock music, but now it's worship. And so it's like
Yeah.
we're
The rock
always
that makes us roll.
yeah, we always have this previous generation being overly critical of the younger generation's essentially expression, right? Like I said, you're not allowed to dance. You're not allowed to go to a ball game. You're not allowed to go to a movie theater. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
that, but as fundamentalist Baptists, you weren't allowed to go dancing and you weren't allowed to go to a movie theater. Christians shouldn't be seen at a movie theater is kind of how it was. And so kind of trying to avoid being that person of like, oh, a Christian nightclub, you guys are just satanic. You can't be doing that. No Christian should be. But
Yeah.
really bringing it to the question whether we should be found at nightclubs or whether we should be there or all this other stuff, because we do have Christian versions of things. Like we have Christian concerts, we have Christian bands, we have Christian rock bands, we have uh so is it possible to have a Christian nightclub?
Hmm.
That's really the question. Can we have our own sanctified version of that?
Yeah, like a redeemed, like just like how like yeah, you could have like Chick-fil-A versus the heathen Popeyes.
Yeah.
Nothing against Popeyes, like where it's like you can tell, like we like or like Raising Cane's like the One Love and everything. Like you can tell when you kind of have like a company that has more Christian values and versus a company that might not. And you're trying to think like, now we're just talking about fast food chicken now, but redeeming aspects were like, it's not the chicken that's bad. It's not like because this chicken that was made at Raising Cane's versus like there might be a better recipe
Right.
somewhere. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's not like, oh, you ate chicken there and you're worse because you ate didn't eat chicken from over here. And so you're trying to find that balance of like, yeah, is there redeemable qualities of nightlife, going out clubbing that we could carry over into the Christian life?
Yeah, and I
Like,
just
yeah.
wanna build an Iron Man on this because I don't want people to think that um that this is just a quick yes or a quick no, something that's
Hmm.
so simply answered. Like our one of our most cherished hymns to date is Amazing Grace. And it
Oh
was
yeah.
it was a song that was taken from a bar tune. So these were kind of bar tunes that were sang while people were drunk and they were singing it together. And it was the melody and the tune of this song that was overlaid with the hymn's lyrics, Amazing Grace as we know it now. And so that's what I'm saying. The Iron Man approach to this is we can make our Christian versions of these things. The question is,
Hmm.
can we have a Christian nightclub? And she says, what's going to be at this Christian nightclub? We're going to be able to meet other people that are Christians. We're going to be able to fellowship. We're going to be able to worship. All of those things are beautiful. All of those things are good. And all of those things we desire to have, especially in a church or in small groups and all those other settings. So we're always trying to create these scenarios and bring that about. But one thing that really just didn't sit well at all with me, and I don't think it ever will, no matter how people kind of try to explain this away, is a safe place for people to turn up. She used that. She used that
Yeah.
terminology,
That's the
something
link
akin
she
to
did.
that. And
Yeah.
and folks, for those of you that don't know what turning up is, there's a
Like
it's
lack of
sort of
self-control.
yeah, it's sort of a difficult word to define really. But it's been primarily used with regard to getting drunk or getting
Hmm.
high or getting something like that or even like party, sort of like a party down type feel of the
Yeah,
previous
like
generations.
yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, it's the
No
music, it's the
self-control
dancing,
and
it's the
just
feeling. Yeah, it's the sort of
let
losing
go of
yourself
life
and
and all my
and
problems.
yeah, and a lot of that, surrounds sort of that culture as well. And so, maybe we would have to maybe even interview them to get more of an idea. Uh, I don't I don't really have an interest in interviewing them.
They're in
Um,
LA. You can find them.
yeah, I could. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm
No.
sure I could probably try and get on this wait list or whatever. But like I said, I have no desire, never have, never will. Um, but I can only imagine that
No
there are
shame.
drinks there and they're trying to provide a safe environment to drink
Yeah.
and have
Virgin
fun.
daiquiri.
But yeah, I don't see how this concept translates. I don't know how there can be a Christian nightclub That's not one of the things that I really foresee as being able to be taken and conquered for the sake of the Lord,
Hmm.
like a bar tune with Amazing Grace or rock and roll music.
Because it's not like a place like where you're just trying to necessarily go to dance, or a place you're just trying to go to decompress, or
Right.
hey, we need a new space to be able to hang out with other believers other than church, other than a restaurant, other than, some other form of entertainment, going to like a
Right.
game or what recreational bowling. And it really is. I think like it's almost, and I don't want to project so everyone understand this. Like they didn't say this. I don't know them. This may not be their intention at all. But it can sound like maybe you're between a rock and if they're Christians, between a rock and a hard place. Like I used to love clubbing, but I'm a Christian now, and it's kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, that tension of, is there a way where I don't have to give up clubbing
Right.
because I'm a Christian?
Can I have my cake and eat it too?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and they didn't say this, and I don't, and they might not have done, gone clubbing or whatever, or been a part of the nightlife. Or maybe they did and they saw, hey, you know what? We're Christians. I really do enjoy this. Is there a way that we can make this better? And it's God honoring. And I understand they might have been on that side of it too.
Yeah.
But it is interesting of like,
And I do think
you,
that's their perspective. I do
okay,
think
good.
that's where they're coming from.
Yeah. And I do too. I just wanted to like humor, like,
Hmm.
potential both sides. But it is interesting of, I think, like, yeah, kind of like another safeguard is what we're talking about here. Like, first, it's like, just we need to be careful before we just like say God told us. It's right to have ambitions. It's fine to have goals. It's good to have interests. We just have to be careful before like our desires may morph into we think they're God's desires, even if they're
Right.
good. And then I think the second thing is it's really, you gotta be really careful that you don't try to get out of this clubbing experience like what you would want out of church, and
Hmm.
then you can't get that at church, so you go here. Because if you think about what she was offering, meeting other Christians, other
Hmm.
believers, being able to have fellowship, being able to worship, I guess church is not cutting it. And like it's like we want those things that church offers. I don't think she's saying church isn't cutting it, but it's like we want the things that church offers,
Yeah.
but we want it in a dark room with lights and really loud, upbeat music
Right.
that we can dance and like. I can't party at church, but I don't want to stop partying, but I want to party for the Lord.
Yeah.
And so
It's it's such
it's
a
tough,
it's such
dude.
a
Like,
it's such a tough question to answer too, and that's really why I wanted to bring this forward. Is is really, I mean, as we're getting to this, the platform that I thought we'd be jumping into, and that's actually what we're exploring right now, is the question, essentially, what can we quote unquote Christianize? What
mm,
can we turn for the Lord and make redeemable as opposed to not? And so, like, I I think, like, raves, right? Like,
right.
or
Like
electronic
Coachella.
music. I think
Yeah, Burning
I think
Man.
it's possible to have a Christian version of that.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
you
It's
can
music,
have,
right? It's
yeah, if you
music.
just have an oversaturation of Christian DJs and they're all that, there's nothing inherently wrong, as that's just a concert essentially.
Right, right.
Um, and you can have Christian versions of other things. Like, I kind of listen to Christian metal when I work out. So you can have that. But a Christian nightclub. And as I think about nightclubs, I think about the elements of what a nightclub essentially is. You have a room, a dark room. You have a DJ essentially playing the same thing that I was just saying. I can imagine that being okay. But why not in this area? Why not in this room? It seems like such a weird thing to say, well, this is okay, but this is not. And as I think about a nightclub, you're there to dance and listen to that music and dance. You're there to meet strangers. You're there to drink, and you're there to potentially go home with a stranger.
Hmm.
How do you
Yeah.
Christianize that culture that is essentially a culture of one night stands? Because what you're asking is it's like, oh, we're going to create a sanctified environment that's not that, but that's sort of the essence of night clubbing, right? I'm going to go there to drink, I'm going to go there to get intoxicated, but as a Christian, we don't want to get overly intoxicated, so we need to pull that element out. You're going to go there to potentially hook up, but you shouldn't have premarital sex. So you need to pull that element out. What do you have left? You have people coming together to meet each other and dance. Okay, cool. That's good. That's just like the concept I was just talking about. Okay, now let's talk about this type of dancing that's going on. If you're going to dance to this type of
Hmm.
music, what kind of dancing is going on? Probably not the type that is typical of a nightclub. So you're
I
gonna have
hope
to
not.
pull that out. So you're
Yeah.
gonna have to pull that out of that. And by the end of this, all you have is a concert. So, it's like I don't think nightclub can be redeemed. I do think concert, electronic music, rave or whatever, all of that.
Dancing.
Yeah,
Dancing can be
dancing,
redeemed.
that's fine. That's the
Hmm.
jumping up and down part, which is, typical of that type of music. Um, but
Recreational
the
drinking? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just playing everybody.
Well, it's like drinking.
That's
That's
like a
that's a
different,
debatable thing as to whether you
right.
should have that out and open, encouraging. There's nothing wrong with drinking. Our Lord drank and was accused of being a drunkard,
Yeah.
a
Oh
wine
yeah, he
bibber
was.
more specifically. Um, we will drink wine in heaven. So there's nothing against drinking, but the nightclub culture is a culture of drinking in excess. And so that's what I'm saying. When you get to the you know to the non in excess part of that, you sort of pull out the essences of a nightclub. And so what you're left with is something that is probably less reminiscent of a nightclub,
Fifth
more
grade dance.
reminiscent. Yeah, it's like, okay,
Not
yeah,
that
here.
bad. Okay.
Yeah,
Like,
it just becomes very reminiscent of a concert instead, and so I don't think a Christian nightclub is possible. I don't know.
that,
What,
or
what do you
you
think,
end
Dave?
up like, uh, and I'm just trying to be really careful because there might be, people, and feel free to chime in if you happen to be able to go to this nightclub and listen to this episode and be like, hey, like, I've been there, like I've seen with my eyes, uh, and you can either, confirm or deny, like, hey, actually, like, I went there and it's like,
Yeah,
sadly, this looks no different than like any other club,
right.
and it's giving Christians an excuse to act like the world.
Yeah,
Or please, like, tell us, like, enlighten us with, like, it's unlike anything I've ever been at before, like a place where I've gone and I could like go in, hang out with my friends, listen to the type of music that we like to listen to, dance, jump around, have fun, maybe even hear remixes to some of our favorite Christian songs. And then we
yeah,
went home at a normal hour. Like,
yeah,
and so I'm not trying to be the, yeah, like we're picking the fight. We're starting this episode because we're talking about this because we don't like it. Like, that's not what we're talking about it because we think it's worth talking about. It's just
yeah.
different. Like,
It's
and we're pastors. Like, you see us, literally, you're watching us. If you're on YouTube, you're listening on Spotify. We're literally trying to think it through, like, together,
hmm
like, as pastors. Like, if someone like came up to me like, "Hey, Dave, they opened up Club 217. Do you think the youth could go?" Or it's like, "Hey, oh, it's over 18, so maybe our college ministry.
yeah.
Do you think like would you be for or against it? Why or why not?" You
And
hear a young couple, they decided to go. Are you okay with it? Why or why not?
and part of I think my reservation here as well is I think the type of people that would go to these are the new Christians, the ones that have
Hmm.
just come into the faith and out of the world. And my
Interesting. Yeah.
reservation on this too is like I said, it's sort of like, oh, I have this thing that I used to do. I used to go clubbing a lot, but now I'm with Jesus. So what do I do? And it's like now I have an outlet. I could go to Christian nightclubs,
Right.
right? But it's kind of like saying, I used to be an alcoholic, and now that I have Jesus, I'm trying to quit. But we have a Christian bar now, right? And
Yeah,
so I
like
can go back
a
to that,
Christian
and I can,
brewery.
yeah, and I can
Yeah.
drink, I can hang out with sanctified people, and I can drink just one beer, and just that. And
Mm,
what's that gonna set me up to do, but to fall back into alcoholism? And so what I think is in what I'm really worried about here is that it's really just going to deteriorate very quickly. It's going to
mm,
bring people that maybe are trying to come out of that environment and go back into it, people with a little bit less reservation in their faith may or are probably going to be there as well. And so I really do think something bad's going to come of this. I
mm,
really do hope not. I really hope nothing bad comes of this. And I really hope that, if anyone does meet someone there, that they take the long path that is drawn out for them by the Lord. And maybe if you meet them and you like them, go ahead and exchange numbers and then start to date, not go home with them
yeah.
that day.
Please don't.
Weed
Yes.
out and get to know them and then find out whether you are to be with them. But I really think that that's not what a Christian nightclub will gear people towards, and so I really do think that
Mm,
it's really going to be a gateway to falling away, and that's
well,
that's my that's my reservation with it all.
and it's also, and I'm also like, you know, two things. One, like we've mentioned, like, can this be redeemed? Like, we know there are some things that, like, they cannot exist the way they are if they are to be redeemed. Like,
Right,
you can't have a Christian strip club, right? Like
exactly.
strippers for Jesus. Like that
Right.
does not work. It can't. You can't redeem that. You redeem it by closing those doors,
Mhm.
and all those men or ladies find God honoring or fearing men and
Yeah.
women, opposite sex, and then they get married, stay devoted to one another, and they don't do that line of work ever again.
Mhm.
Same for, I can shoot heroin to the glory of God.
Yeah.
It's like, no, because you're going to end up doing to your body what the Lord never intended. He doesn't want you to be dependent on that. He wants you to be
Right.
dependent on Him. He doesn't want you to be bound to that, but to His word. So, and so you're trying to think, okay, I'm not trying to say, oh, see, nightclub, absolutely unredeemable. But when you like broke down like you did the aspects of the nightclub, it's like you end up not having a nightclub based
Right.
off like what we know a nightclub to be. You end up not having a nightclub when you take those things away, and you could say you have a club that you go to at night, but not what people traditionally know as a nightclub.
Right.
And
And like who's
yeah,
going to mediate
yeah,
the behavior, right? If someone starts turning up, someone starts really getting drunk,
filled with the Spirit,
are you going to cut
you
them
know,
off, right? Are you going to
yeah,
say, "Hey, you're getting a little bit too drunk," is what
like
I'm
that's not what we're
estimating.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you going to be there to do that? Is a
or the wait
bouncer going to
list,
be
dude.
able to, I don't know, is a bouncer going to stand there with the apostolic creed saying, "Do you affirm these things?
Yeah, like
Otherwise you
that's
can't come in."
Yeah, like
Right?
that's the wait
Because
list. Like, how are they vetting? Like, hey, you have to hold to these doctrines of faith before we let you in.
right,
Like, do
otherwise
you
it's
believe in
not
the
a Christian
Trinity?
nightclub, it's just
Yeah.
a nightclub that a lot of Christians happen to go to,
Like, how
right?
do you like? Yeah. What if you
And
got the
then
non-Christian that gets
and
in?
then once
Like,
again you have the sheep among wolves. You're sort of just inviting people to come. They're going to do these sinful things. They're going to, try and
Pastor
intoxicate
Ben.
people and go home with them that night. So it's
Oh
like,
gosh.
how are you mitigating this? And then
Oh.
also, if someone is dancing in a very inappropriate way, or if they're behaving, in an inappropriate way that is typical at a nightclub, who is stopping all of this? Right? And you can see
Mm,
very quickly that once you start kind of mitigating everything that can and cannot go wrong, it sort of feels like, like a school supervisor, right? And
mm-hmm.
that's not fun, and that really kills the vibe, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like the essence of what a nightclub is, I don't feel really translates. You maybe more of like a concert. Like I said, if you're into that music, maybe there could be the potential for a Christian concert in that realm. But I just don't think a nightclub is possible. And just even as you said, like with like a Christian strip club, essentially you can't. And that's as I'm sort of poking at all the essences that are typical of a nightclub. I'm really feeling like it's more of that. That we just stay away from that altogether.
Hmm.
Although
Eh,
what I will
yeah.
say, and I will commend here though. Sorry, you can go ahead and say something right after this.
Hmm.
What I do
Yeah.
want to commend these two for though is there's just less and less spaces for Christians to come and gather in a way that is wholesome and fun, right?
Yep.
It's like over here, even in Los Angeles, even in the circles that I have, our college age group is pretty small. And in fact, our college age group, as it's been growing, encapsulates about 3 or 4 churches because those college age kids come to ours. And even then, it's not a particularly large group. And so the college age group is sort of a group that's very small, and they're trying to find their group and spaces to have some fun in. And so, you'll try to go bowling or try and do stuff together. But there isn't a ton of options. And so I'll give them kudos for trying to think up of something, but I will say I just encourage them to maybe think up of something else, right? And maybe that's a
Hmm.
challenge to our churches to maybe provide those types of spaces. Not a Christian nightclub, but maybe something else like I don't know, more of like youth nights or something along those lines. I don't know. We can think, but we can also think wisely.
Yeah. And I try to guard myself like from where you end up becoming like the all is vanity guy where it's like actually if we're really for the Lord, why do we go to movies at all? Why do we go to
Right.
concerts at all? Like we should be evangelizing or reading or praying. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to like end up and then go that extreme where it's like because I don't want, I'm trying to like strong, the strong man, the iron argument, and I don't want to be like, oh well, these arguments that you're saying maybe why you're hesitant for a Christian nightclub, why don't we apply those same principles to concerts or movies or going to a sporting event or
hmm
like shouldn't we be about the the kingdom
Yeah.
of God, be about the Father's business, especially when like we're kind of calling it like what does God tell us to do? He doesn't outright say in his word, have a nightclub. He doesn't say you can go to a professional baseball game or watch the Los Angeles Kings lose to the Capitals. So sorry. I'm sorry. That was mean. That was mean. I know
This
that
is
was mean. Sorry.
satanic.
Yes, you're the ones in black. We got the blood of Jesus' blood.
Hey,
Red. Okay.
we just like our morality. We like things black and white. Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah. You took the Chevy logo. You okay. Okay, this is
Yeah. All right.
digressing.
Let's
This is
let's
worse
bring it
than a
back
Christian nightclub. Okay. Sorry. But I'm
I
just
lost that
thinking.
train of thought. Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I know. We're back on the train. Choo choo. It's all good. Just thinking, like those things can be redeemed. There's redeemable qualities where you can have fellowship. I've been able, not like I'm praising the Lord like I would on a Sunday service. Not even close. Not even like next best. But I have been able to worship the Lord, even at things like concerts or
Yeah.
sporting events where it's like, oh my gosh, like I just watched a dude hit a baseball. Like like I watched a dude take a ball that's like the size of an orange coming
hmm
at him at 100 miles an hour, and he hit it 400 feet.
Yeah.
And I'm like you think like a Tower of Babel, like what can mankind not do? you know, and I'm trying to be
Right.
humorous here. Same for when you go to a concert and it's like, oh my gosh, like the Lord gave this person the vocal cords to sing that note.
Yep.
Like you can't do that without the Lord's help. And so like there's like that balance. But like, could you take that to like a nightclub? Or just like, oh my gosh, the Holy Spirit is in this space.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, like I've never been like, because you don't want that coffee shop vibe where it's like it ends up, because I want, and if they're Christians and if they're like, they feel like the Lord has given them the desire to do this, I should want it to succeed.
Yeah.
Technically, right? I should want it to thrive and flourish, and everyone's raving about it, because if that's where the Lord's work is going to happen, I'm like, I'm for the kingdom. I'm a pastor.
Yeah.
I'm a Christian. So I should be on their side. Why do I have this feeling like it's not going to work out that way? Am I just a, cynic? Or is it
Yeah.
just like, I don't know if that's like God tells us what to do in his word. And even though he doesn't say play baseball or go to a concert or a nightclub, I feel like one's a little bit easier to do, all to the glory of God.
Hmm.
Or maybe not easier, but may provide more opportunities based off, its defining characteristics than like a strip club's defining characteristics, or what defines a nightclub. And I don't know. I'm really trying to wrap my brain about it. It really is
Yeah.
different.
I mean, for it to work, as I said, it would have to strip all those components out.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have to tread a razor thin line.
Which is not always fun to have to be worrying about, right?
Yeah, and not towing that line. I mean, hear me, folks. Not towing that line is not like, you missed the mark. Not towing that line is going from, worshiping God to
like
bringing
displeasing
the
God.
people of
Like,
God to worship idols.
Yeah.
It's the razor thin line that that tribe was almost eliminated for when they set up an altar on the hills, because there was only to be one altar, and that was in the Lord's court. They almost got eliminated, but when they said it's not an altar to be sacrificed on, it's just to show, hey, you on the other side of that mountain, we are still family. And so that symbolic representation was good. But it's that razor thin line, because people did sacrifice on that later, it became idolatrous. It's just like, you can have something innocent, and if it's not innocent, it is woefully wicked. Right? And that's really where my reservation, I'm almost scared for it, because if people are not, drinking in moderation, if people are not acting with reverence towards each other, respecting each other of the opposite sex as image bearers, if people are bringing their one night stand culture into it, people will, and I'm sorry to be so vulgar and so grotesque with my language here, but I would hate for someone to come to a Christian nightclub and they get raped there. Right?
Oh, right. Like,
or
because a
they get,
non-Christian person gets in
yeah,
doing non-Christian things.
or they get roofied and taken home. Like, just, I would just hate the very idea that someone would think that they're going to a Christian nightclub and have such an experience. And so my reservation is that in order for it to work, it would have to be so razor thin that I don't even think it would be fun. It would feel sort of like like a Christian homeschooling prom. It's like, have you talked to people that have done that? Most of them say how, very corny it was, how awkward it was, how they didn't like it, or they just didn't go to it. And I think for this to work, it would almost have to be at that level, which is why I think it won't work. It shouldn't work, because nightclubs, aren't something that I think we can redeem. Maybe I'm wrong, right?
I kind of want to be wrong. If
I
this
would love
God
to be
told
wrong.
him, I want to be wrong.
It would be great to see it not only work and thrive, but be a source to change the culture. I just don't think I am.
Yeah, I think we're going to go like in that door, and they're going to be like, like almost they're gonna like you can tell like they're just gonna look around. Sorry, on Spotify you just hear the polls. Like I'm looking
Yeah.
around, going like kind of like I'm afraid people are gonna walk in and be like, I thought this was a nightclub.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's gonna be like, well, we're not doing any of the nightclub things. And you're like, well, because
Oh,
the nightclub things aren't good.
right.
You know,
Sorry, my light just fell. That was that
it's
noise.
okay. That's what will happen in the nightclub when when the bass drops.
Yeah, it'd be kind of funny too because it's like if you want to meet people and get to know them and get to know where they're at in the Lord and stuff, I guess your
A
music
loud room.
would have to like not be too loud, right?
It's like you got like that one guy that's like, hi, I think you're really cute. Can I buy you a Sprite? Like,
What's your favorite worship song?
oh my gosh. She likes How Great Thou Art. Like, what are you gonna do? Her cousin goes to Liberty. Like,
Did you go to that latest Lauren Daigle concert?
I know they should have her here. like
Yeah,
clubs aren't easy to talk in.
yeah, they're
Like, they're
not.
not. I've been in them. I'm like, I'm gonna tell you, I'm on the podcast. They're not redeemable.
Yeah,
Sorry. Like, and you're gonna be like, why were you there? It's like
I was
gathering
dragged
evidence. Just like
there. Nah, I've been dragged to places I didn't want to be.
100%. There's nothing worse than being like you're in a group of 6 and you're like the one person, but like you're my
Yeah.
ride.
I mean,
I'm like, it's
I
like
was
you
the
drove me
introvert,
here.
so I was the guy that's like, "Ah, all right.
Yeah.
As soon as I got there, I was like, when can we leave? When can we leave? And I just felt so awkward.
Right, you're like sweaty bodies everywhere. Okay, now we're done. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I don't think it's redeemable. I'd be happy to be wrong. I just don't think I am.
Mm.
And I think we sufficiently explained why. We sort of kind of walked through our thought process as we kind of went through this of just like the elements of what this is, whether those are redeemable in themselves, whether if we got rid of them, would that still keep the essence of essentially what we're looking for? And as I stated, I think pulling out the essences is to pull it out completely, right? And so we end up with something that's not a nightclub. And yeah, I mean, we said it multiple times, so I'll just state it once more, and then we can move forward here. But I just don't think it's redeemable. I'm happy to be wrong, but I don't think it is. With that being said, Dave, I'm gonna leave you with the last word, and then I'll go ahead and close this out. No words? Yeah,
No.
same here.
We said it all.
Yeah.
I think.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning into this episode. Real, like, just I want to say controversial, but just real gray, and that's why it seems so black and white. But really, when you get into it and you really try and build that Iron Man, not straw man, that Iron Man argument, and think through it, there's definitely a lot more conversation to have. That being said, there's plenty of ideas out there in which we can provide a godly, sanctified environment in which we're not. There's going to be a lot of ideas like this in the exploration of how to provide these. Can we have a Christian mini golf course? Yeah, absolutely. But can we have a Christian nightclub? No, I don't think we can, right? And so as we explore these, there's nothing wrong with the idea or the exploration of it, but we really have to come together, bring our heads together, bring scripture together, and really kind of parse out, as the Bible says, we need to discern the spirits as to whether this is something that we should be going through. And so that is why I thought this would be a really important episode, is being able to discern in real time whether an idea is good and we should pursue it or not. And as we said, I kind of rule this as not. But even for those of you that might be thinking on down the line for some ideas for yourself or even other ministries, one ministry that I'm just thinking of off the top of my head is a ministry towards strippers and a ministry towards people that are coming out of strip clubs. There is a group of women, retired age women, that are out there. They are out there on the street. going to try and minister to strippers and people coming out of those places. And they are bringing people to the Lord. The men stay in the car. They are the chauffeurs, and they are the protectors.
And the
Just to make
prayers.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the
lots of prayer.
prayers. That being said, they have wisely discerned what the roles are and how to do it, right? They've really thought about this because men are not allowed to be in those areas. They will be tempted. That is just a fact, which is why the women are the ones that go out. And so they've really thought through this. Can we redeem this? Can we go into this area? And they've really thought through this. And so I do exhort us to be kind of innovative and in
Reaching the
ingenuitive.
lost, but like, yeah.
Ingenuitive is the number is the
Nice.
is the idea I'm thinking of. Ingenuitive with our thoughts in this, but we also have to be very wise in our discerning. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, do all of that jazz. We love to hear your feedback and we love to have these conversations with you. With that being said, we will catch you guys in the next episode. Bye.